very, very easily. Let's take a brief look at one of these areas. So if I were to go on the Rotary.org website and click on our causes that you see on the screen there, and then you click on supporting education, you'll get to another level of detail. So it not only provides information about that focus area, but it provides a little bit of context and our goal for this particular focus area. It provides broad examples to help trigger ideas for new projects. And there's videos to show you how we're making a difference for each of those, similar to the one that we've just seen. And also the impact of our efforts in monetary terms. So really helpful resource. And if you do nothing else from today, but go onto the Rotary website to have a look at that, I'd encourage you to do so. It also covers the positive outcomes for the communities we serve. So if you're trying to get some ideas for some projects, either locally or internationally, it's a great resource to have a look at. So as you can see, we're doing a hell of a lot of good in the world. So the legacy is really something to celebrate. And we should share these successes across our clubs and across the district. What I'd like to do now is shift gears a little bit and have a look at how the Rotary Foundation is structured. Our foundation is supported through three main funds. The Polio Plus Fund, dedicated to global polio eradication. The Annual Fund, which is the primary source of funding for foundation grants and activities. And the Endowment Fund, which supports Rotary Foundation in perpetuity. The Polio Plus Fund has been set up to support our efforts in eradicating polio. And these funds are used to run major initiatives implemented through our major partner agencies, such as the World Health Organization and UNICEF. It's also currently supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who provide match funding 2-to-1 for every dollar or pound donated. With their assistance, Rotary's contributed more than $1.6 billion, and we've reached more than 2.5 billion children across the globe. Quite astonishing. Gifts to the Endowment Fund are held in perpetuity as part of an endowment. They're professionally invested with a portion of the earnings used each year. The Endowment Fund offers donors a way to create a lasting legacy through Rotary. And finally, the Annual Fund supports our local district grants and international global grants. And it does this through something that we call the share system. I'll explain this in a short while, but fundamentally contributions are credited to you as an individual donor, and also to your club and to the district. At the end of each Rotary year, contributions made by our clubs in our district are added up into the Annual Fund and are directed into two separate funds. 50% is credited to the District Designated Fund, or DDF, if you've heard of that. 50% is then credited to the World Fund. The Rotary Foundation uses the World Fund portion to pay for grants and programme opportunities available to all Rotary districts. The Rotary Foundation's funding cycle makes district contributions, or DDF, available 3 years after they're received. The 3-year cycle gives us as a district time to plan our projects and activities and allows the foundation to invest the contributions. Our district uses the DDF, or District Designated Fund, to fund foundation, district grants and global grants. And the District Rotary Foundation team reviews these and decides how district designated funds, such as district grants, are approved. The district can use up to 50% of this fund, which might also include spendable earnings from 1 or 2 of the other funds for district grants. The remainder may be used for global grants or donated to Polio Plus, Rotary Peace Centres, or to another district. We're now going to recap, for those that have seen it before, but recap a little bit more information around district and global grants. Have a look at the differences between the two and the requirements if you'd like to go and have a look at starting either a district grant or a global grant. The Rotary Foundation offers grants that support a wide variety of different projects, and there's 2 types of grants available to us as clubs: district grants and global grants. District grant funding comes back to us as a block grant from the Rotary Foundation each year, And the application process is governed by our district, with the amount available dependent on the number of grants applied for in any one year. And it's the amount available is limited by the total DDF available for these grants. Global grant funding, on the other hand, comes from a combination of support from the World Fund, District Designated Fund, or DDF, and cash contributions. The grant process itself is supported by the district, but governed by the foundation over in Rotary International. Global grants will be covered in more detail in a short while, and whilst there's no upper limit to the size of a project, district grant funding cannot exceed $1,000 for any project in any Rotary year, and there are rules in place around excessive funding across multiple years for the same project. Global grants, in contrast, must attract a minimum funding level of $30,000, and there's eligibility guidelines for grants which are set by Rotary International, with districts allowed to set their own additional parameters for district grants. So just having a look at district grants in a bit more detail, there's not many restrictions so long as the project itself supports the core mission of the Rotary Foundation, which we covered earlier. District grants can fund small-scale, short-term activities that address the needs within local, national and international communities. District grant funding can support local service projects, international humanitarian projects, scholarships and vocational exchanges. So at this point, I just wanted to recap on 2 points I covered earlier on. Firstly, our district may be able to fund up to 50%, use up to 50% of the district designated fund in any one year for district grants. And this is calculated on the amount of DDF generated from a district's annual fund donation, which happened 3 years ago. So as you can see, the more that we contribute to our annual fund in 3 years' time, the more we can get back to use for district grants and global grants. And while we're not required to take the full amount available, our district receives this funding as a lump sum and then distributes it to clubs aligned to the various district grant applications which have been approved. Now let's take a look at these requirements for district grants in more detail. As you've seen on the previous slide, the upper limit for a district grant is $1,000. And as a minimum, your club has to match any amount provided by the grant, although if you like, you can contribute more for a larger project. As mentioned previously, so long as your project is aligned to the mission of a Rotary Foundation, it can be considered. Technically, a club could use a district grant to fund scholars studying at any level, for example, to help a young person attend RILA. The other dependency is that Rotarians were actively involved in the project. And from a timing perspective, it's important to note that district grants are for projects which commence in the following Rotary year, commencing July the 1st. So if we have a look at an example here where the total cost for a project is $2,000, in this case to support shipping school equipment and education materials to Africa, half would be funded by a district grant and the other half by the club. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at how we would apply for a district grant. Applying for a district grant is relatively straightforward and it takes 2 steps. The first stage is to provide a brief initial outline of the project so the district foundation team can consider your request. And this should only take a few minutes to complete. So it's very simply a very brief description, a start and end date, and an estimated amount that would be required. We've now simplified this form, which is now available as a PDF, which you can fill out electronically. And when you complete section 1, you can just email that back to us, which is a lot easier than printing something out and posting it. Once you've completed the form, you need to send it back over to the District Grant Foundation Chair, Kirsty, who sat next to me. Your project submission will then be reviewed by the District Foundation team, who'll either accept or your project suggestion or request some more information as needed. If you're successful, you then go on to complete the full application. The entire form should take no longer than an hour to complete. Given that you've already filled in the first part, this should be a bit easier. And again, you can use the electronic form to do this. Kinds of information you need to include club members involved, beneficiaries, project budget, and the use of any goods purchased with the grant, and how you intend to promote your project. Again, this can be completed on a computer, but the form this time will need to be completed, printed, signed, and emailed back to the district grant chair. Once approved, and when the district has received the funds from Rotary International, we then send funds over to the club for you to be able to use on the project. You must note, however, that you can't start the project until you receive the funds for the district grant. So we've been through the application process, which is 2 steps. The third step is the reporting phase. So reporting for all of our grants is a Rotary International requirement, and it's a key component of proper stewardship and grant management. Reporting for district grants is really straightforward and far less involved than for a global grant. I've got experience of both of those, so I can attest to that. Overall, district grant funded projects have to be completed within 24 months of being funded. So you've pretty much got 2 years from the point at which you get the money to complete the project. And once complete, a report needs to be produced using the form which we see there, which we can send through to you if required. Along with that, you must send a copy of any receipts showing the expenditure that you've made. And if we don't receive a report for the project, this may prevent the district receiving any further grants in the future. So it's really important that we complete the paperwork on reporting for our grants. So there's a few changes that we wanted to highlight to you as a result of the COVID-19 situation. First of all, district grants. The application submission deadline has been extended from the 31st of May through to the 15th of October this year. And what that means is that, as well as having the application window being extended, it will mean that it will take slightly longer now for the funds to then be released back to the district, which now looks like it's going to happen in December 2020. What that means is that any approved projects won't then be able to start probably until January 2021. But interestingly, what I said before about not being able to start a project until funds are available, there has been an exception made with respect to district grants where they're used to fund COVID-19 projects. In this case, retrospective applications can be made for those projects which started from the 15th of March this year. Now, they're very clear, Rotary International are very clear on this, that it can't be used for cash donations, such as donating money to a food bank. It has to be something very specific, like food for a food bank or something similar to that. So if you've done any COVID-19 type projects from the 15th of March, you are able to consider submitting a district grant application for that. But again, the submission has to be in place before the 15th of October for approval thereafter, and funds obviously available thereafter as well. The other point I wanted to raise was around global grants, where the global grant relates to COVID-19. You are allowed to apply without the international club. In this case, if we were doing a project from the UK overseas, the requirement for 30% of the funding to be provided by a club in this district has been waived. But as of yet, I understand we haven't received any applications for COVID-19 global grants. And just another 2 points. One is around the Rotary International Disaster Response Fund. COVID-19 has now been added as an eligible project, and funds originally were provided up to $1 million. That was oversubscribed almost twice over. So Rotary Foundation managed to provide an additional $2 million with a maximum of $25,000 per project. These projects are only available at a district level through Rotary International, and the availability of that, given the oversubscription originally, you might be limited in terms of being able to do that now. And finally, scholarships. Applications can be made for Rotary Scholars through a grant, but given the current travel restrictions, there are some dependencies there around remote learning rather than travelling, obviously, given the travel restrictions. So in addition to district grants, and we touched on global grants a little bit there, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of district grants in a little bit more detail, sorry, global grants in a little bit more detail. So global grants themselves support large international activities with the proviso that they have to be sustainable, they have to deliver measurable outcomes against the 6 key focus areas that we ran through earlier on. Another key feature of a global grant is that it has to be in partnership between the district and another club where the activity is carried out in another country. Both sponsors, both your club and the overseas club, have to be qualified before you can submit an application. So each year where you're asked to attend a Rotary Foundation seminar for qualification, it's important that you do that if you want to consider a global grant. The minimum budget for a global grant is $30,000, and the Foundation's World Fund provides a minimum of $15,000 and a maximum of $200,000 funding towards that. Clubs and districts contribute district designated funds and or cash contributions that the World Fund once again matches, which is astonishing. District designated funds are matched at 100%, and cash donations are matched at 50%. Global grants support humanitarian projects, scholarships, vocational training teams and such like. And global grant scholarships support international graduates and postgrad study for a period of between 1 and 4 years. If it's a global grant vocational training team, they can provide support overseas if required to groups of professionals. You can travel abroad as well. So that's another interesting angle on the global grant program. Beneficiaries themselves are more likely to support and participate in the project that addresses the needs of a community if it has a sustainable outcome, and one that will continue after the funds have been spent. Rotarians themselves should partner with the community and organisations with technical expertise, but the project itself must be managed by Rotarians. Working in this way means more than just financial participation. It also means that each partner's expertise, each partner club's expertise will be used in the project and activity itself. The plan, where there is a plan, should include an achievable project timeline and should be shared across all your partners and beneficiaries involved. And by establishing a financial management plan before applying for the grant, clubs can ensure that they have processes in place to correctly manage funds before the money is received. And it's important to note that all of this information and the guidelines are all available on the Rotary International website, and tremendous support is provided by our district as well in helping you through that process. So if you do want to embark on one of these, there's lots of experience within the district to provide some guidance and advice if needed. So let's have a look at an example. So for a £35,000 project, let's say, for instance, the club contributes £10,000. That cash donation is then matched at 50%, as mentioned previously. So that would be another £5,000. The district would then contribute £10,000 in this example. And the World Fund, which is Rotary Foundation's World Fund, would match that district DDF donation as well to the tune of £10,000. So the grand total for this grant would be £35,000. So you can see very clearly how a £10,000 contribution from a club can lead to a £35,000 project, which is just fantastic. And as I mentioned earlier on, the global grant has to align to one or more of the areas of focus. And when you go about applying for the global grant, there's a number of measures and metrics which are suggested for each of these. So it's there is a bit of research involved. Obviously, it's more significant funding and a more significant project, but you have to align in the application to those areas of focus. Sustainability, as previously mentioned as well, is so important, and this helps everyone understand that it has to be a long-term project. It has to continue once the project initially has been completed, and be maintained after the grant funding itself ends. So that's a really key component of a global grant. And the first step of going about a global grant, which is rather difficult at the moment, given that we can't travel internationally, is to start with a community assessment. And this is generally where you go and visit the club or the overseas location. You do a bit of research, have a look at the community and what the community needs, and really just have a look at how the requirements align to what's required in terms of a global grant. Any club or district that applies for a global grant to support humanitarian projects must conduct one of these community assessments first and use the results to help design the project and the application process. And then you need to include the results of this assessment in your application itself. So that's quite important. And I think it's probably fairly understandable that we need to conduct those assessments on global grants. And there's lots of tools available on the Rotary website to help with that, in terms of helping you run an assessment, run interviews, focus groups, and other things. That's all available through the Rotary.org website, through My Rotary. Second step is to encourage local ownership. Obviously, you're not going to be over there all the time. The Rotary Club may not have the resources to own the project, so it has to be owned by the local community, and that's really, really important. And if you don't have that, it's difficult to ensure sustainability. So you need to identify how the programme will be owned by the communities that it serves. The third step is also to make sure that you're providing training, because most of our projects depend on people. So that's training in terms of education, community outreach, just really to strengthen those people who are going to benefit the ability to meet the objectives of the grant. So it's important that you consider how you're going to train people. And of course, supporting local communities economically is important. So where at all possible, it's important to buy any equipment, technology, supplies locally where the project is. And make sure that that is managed. So generally, it's the host club, which is the overseas club in this example, that would provide project and the financial management of the project. But buy locally, that's another key step. And find local funding. So a global grant doesn't just have to be funded through direct Rotary contributions. You can find local funding through government, hospitals, organisations that are local to the project as well, and that can be important to underpin the long-term success of the project as well. And the last step is to measure your success. So have a look at what the outcomes are of the project that you're undertaking, and to be able to manage that throughout the course of the project itself. So being able to measure the impact across the metrics that are lined into the grant application, that's also very important. So I know there's a lot of detail in there around global grants, but if you are interested, it is quite a straightforward process. There's lots of people in the district to help. So get in touch with Doreen or myself or Kirsty or Tony to discuss the idea that you've got, and we'll help you plan any next steps. Okay, so final step in my presentation before we open it up to questions is how do I get involved? So if you want to get involved in Rotary Foundation, what can we do? So I think that's okay. Yeah, sorry, I just heard somebody talking. So we want to know how to get involved. So first of all, you could have a go at starting a district grant or a global grant. So figure out a project, come up with the idea and run it through the club, have a chat with district if needs be, and we'll provide support that you need. The other thing I would say is to try and communicate to the members of your clubs the foundation, Rotary Foundation track record, and how we've impacted and improved people's lives across the world. It's also important to engage your communities locally, because a lot of our grants support local needy causes, and also get involved in raising some money for the Rotary Foundation through events, fundraisers, and so on. Fundamentally, if you want to know all about Foundation, it's all on the Rotary website. I mentioned that a few times. There's quite a few courses on there. It gives you an idea on how to approach grants, global grants, district grants, and so on. Really useful resource. So it's rotary.org/learn. And also, just Google Rotary Foundation areas of focus, and you'll see lots of videos, lots of examples and clubs that are doing various things there. So have a look at Google, YouTube videos, as well as the Rotary website. And finally, something I wanted to cover off as well was something called Rotary Giving. And this is all about regular giving as individuals to the Rotary Foundation. And it's a challenging year for us within Foundation, because donations to the annual fund, which we know provide funding for district grants and global grants, are around about, as we speak to date, 53% lower than what's been seen in the previous 4 years due to COVID-19. And our donations, when we look at what our donations provide, deliver incredible outcomes for our communities. It can't be understated just how much we can achieve through Foundation and through the grant process. Donations that we provide are really, really well managed. 92% going towards projects is an incredible ratio, and one that very few charities achieve, I believe. And fundamentally, any donations that we give to Foundation, 50% of that given to the annual fund comes back as district designated funds in 3 years' time to support district and global grants. And if we just had a think for 1 minute, if everyone donated £6.50 a month, which is the price of 1 pint, depending on where you go, or 2 lattes, we could achieve so much more as a group. Within District 1180, only 3% of our members give regularly to Foundation as individuals. And if we increase that to 23%, at £6.50 a month, would increase our donations, which would bridge the gap that we're seeing at the moment, which will have an impact in 3 years' time, unless something incredible happens between now and the end of June, which it might well happen in terms of fundraising. So a call out there, if you are interested in supporting our Foundation through individual regular giving. And I know that a lot of clubs on this call will already give tremendous amounts to support Foundation to deliver our projects, but just a thought there. It's easy to donate to the Foundation. I coined the phrase easy as 1, 2, 3. Go to Rotary RGBI GBI website, log in and click donate. If you want to set up a regular giving, simply print off the standing order mandate form, complete it and post it off, and that's all there is to it. So we'd encourage everyone to just have a think about whether an individual contribution is appropriate. So it's very easy to do. And finally, as a club, if you wanted to make a donation, we can send a form over to you if you get in touch with us. What we'd say is make sure that you complete the correct box. So right at the top there, we've got the annual fund, or AF. So if you wanted to donate towards the fund that helps us with district grants and global grants, that's the fund to contribute to. So just make sure that you tick the correct box if you want to donate to the annual fund. So just in summary, before we open it up for any questions, hope you've learned something new today about the Rotary Foundation. Thanks for listening to me for what has been 40 minutes. Hopefully it's given you some ideas on how you might engage in some of the activities around Foundation. Obviously, things are changing. COVID-19 has presented challenges to Foundation as everything else. And hopefully over the next few minutes, we can answer some of your questions. So if you want to get in touch, please send Doreen an email or get in touch via phone or whatever else. That would be great. And we'll help if we can. So thanks for your time. Thanks for listening to me. And I think we'll now open it up for questions if we've got any questions. James, can you help with that, please?
Yeah, so I was privately messaged a question from John Craddock from Llanidloes Club. He said, Llanidloes used to arrange grants until the changes, i.e. make a member attend a meeting in North Wales. Is there any way we can get around this? Perhaps a district officer zooming us? I'm assuming he's referring to the grants seminar. Yeah,
so I'm assuming that's the grant qualification seminar.
Yeah, I think he was referring to that.
Yeah, so at the moment I realise it's it's an actual meeting. So Doreen, would you like to comment on that? Doreen's on mute. Can you unmute her, James, please?
No.
Okay, Doreen, over to you.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, James?
So essentially, John Craddock from Llanidloes Club is asking if there's a way around the physical meeting in North Wales for the grants qualification seminar.
We are looking at various things for that. It's difficult to know because the grant seminar we do in November, and we did do one in March because not everybody can go in November. We do prefer a face-to-face, and even Paul, who's very much into Zoom, also prefers face-to-face because we get a lot of interaction like that. We will have to maybe look at other forms in the future. Well, at the moment we're not doing that, and which is why we introduced one in North Wales. But at the moment, I can't promise that. We'll have to discuss this at the, amongst the foundation team and see what they think about that, because it is quite an intense. It is quite an intense one, rather than just the quick one we've done now. So I don't know. Have you got any ideas, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? And I think the things that we thought we wouldn't do 8 weeks ago, we're now, like the assembly, we're now doing online. And I think some of it will depend on the circumstance that's presented to us. We just don't know at the moment. So I think you need to give us a bit more time. But we'll take your point on board. And obviously we'll let you know. So we haven't got an answer right now, but obviously understand where you're coming from. And we've got 73 people, and that is incredible that we've got 73 people on this call this evening. So I think we've got to take that into account. But again, Doreen, we can pick that up in one of the meetings.
Yes, we will.
Okay. So James, I think a few people have raised their hands. I think Terry has raised his hand, and somebody else as well. Have we got any other questions?
Yeah, I've unmuted Terry. If he
actually, it isn't Terry,
Barbara.
Oh, well, hey, Barbara.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, it had Terry's name on there.
Not today.
Barbara.
I did mention this at the foundation seminar. Our club donate through our charity account, and then we claim gift aid.
Yep.
Which gives us another substantial amount of money either into the club or to pass on to foundation. It's just an observation to pass on to everybody else.
Yeah, point really, really well made there. And if you make your donations to individually, certainly to foundation through RGBI, then there is an option to do that. And when you submit the form, you can actually state the individuals that have made the contributions as well. So partly you can do that, but I understand it's a little bit more complicated if you want to be able to do that as a club in terms of getting that set up. There's a process and how you've got to go through. So point well made. Thank you very much.
It isn't that complicated if you have a charity account, and I'm sure we all do.
Yes, absolutely. Maybe we
Thank
should
you.
answer that. Thanks very much. Do we have any other questions?
There's a couple on the chat.
Yeah.
Has Kirsty been looking at the chat? Has she
Uh,
collecting them? Or?
no, it's difficult for us to see the chat from where we are.
There's one on the chat about district grants. Where was it now?
Yeah, do you want me to read it, Doreen?
Yeah, something to do with how long does it take?
Well, so the first one in the chat was from Steve Martin asking, in terms of global grants, how are we doing for money? Are there any projects signed up with ring-fenced money?
Do you want to answer Steve Martin's question, please?
Yes. Hello, Steve. At the moment, we've got quite a bit of DDF, and it's all because 3 or 4 Rotary clubs have pulled out of the global grants due to lack of being able to raise funds, and projects that they were interested in has had to be started. And so the global grant didn't go through. So we do have quite a bit, and we've already got potentially 5 clubs that are interested in global grants for in the next Rotary year.
Any message from Steve regarding that?
Steve, do you want to on that one?
Should we take another question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can take another question, yeah.
Okay, Jill McNeely asks, do foundation invest ethically, i.e. in renewables, not coal or oil, for example?
Can you take that?
I'm afraid I don't know what they invest in. I'm not party to that. I can ask the trustees for you.
I can answer that.
Oh, can you? Tony thinks he can answer that.
As far as ethically, i.e. renewals, the environmental question comes in, particularly if you're concerned with solar panels.
Foundation
the grant could be related to solar panels.
Yeah. Talking about foundation when they invest the money. I don't know. I can ask the trustees for you and find that out, Jill. I've had more meetings with the foundation trustees and everybody else in our IBI than I've ever had in my life before since we've been in lockdown. So I can certainly ask that question.
Okay, Mike. Yeah, I've unmuted. I've requested Mike to be unmuted. You can unmute yourself now, Mike, to ask your question.
Hello, can I be heard?
You
Yep.
can, yes.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello, Paul.
Hiya, Mike.
Hello, Doreen. Hello, everyone else.
Hi, Mike.
My question is I've got, throughout the year, in Wallasey Rotary Club, we held several events right throughout the year. And I know it might be inappropriate to ask this now, but I'm very concerned over certain events that's coming off that I've got in the pipeline that I hold annually to raise money and awareness about foundation. In the present situation of the COVID-19 crisis, I feel that not only myself at Wallasey and several other clubs themselves are going to have great difficulty in raising funds over the next 12 months. I'm very concerned about this. Like usual events to tell you that we have a race night where we have all Rotarians there, a number of people there. That won't be held this year because of the crisis. We also have different events throughout the year, like book sales and what have you. We can't hold them. All of these are in aid of Rotary and Thanks for Life Week. I'm very concerned about the future and how we're going to carry on this fundraising. I know, Paul, that you mentioned about the £6.50 commitment from Rotarians every month, but I'm very concerned about getting Rotary out there to the general public and raising awareness and funds to go back to foundation. Any suggestions that we might have from yourself or any other club members?
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly chip in there, Mike, and yeah, and I echo your concerns, and I suggest it's a concern of many service organisations at the moment as well, and I think in some ways we've got to look at create different ways of fundraising. So whether you can do online quizzes. Or fun evenings that way. But again, it doesn't cover the variety of activities that we used to do. So I echo your concerns, and actually we don't know right now, do we, how long our current situation is going to be as it is. So yeah, I echo that. But I think time to get the creative juices flowing and see what ideas we can come up with. As a district, as Rotary, share these ideas and see what we can come up with. But I echo those challenges that you've referenced. Doreen, don't know whether there's anything else you want to chip in there.
No, I mean we do. We recognise that it is going to be difficult for people to do events, which is in a way why Paul was saying, just try as an individual Rotarian this year. You are saving money being at home, not only on haircuts and going out for lunch, instead of when you're in work, you're not buying your lunches, and we're not all going out for Sunday lunches, and there's lots of things that we're saving money on. And I think this is why Paul has sort of said, instead of looking at club donations, which may not be there this year because of events, maybe people could think about doing individual donations.
We came across a club in Wales, and they were interested in doing a global grant, and the other one was considering partnership with them. But they kept saying, well, we can't do it all on our own. And I said, well, why don't you, one club come in with you in this partnership for yours, and then you can do the same the other way around. They said, oh, we never thought of that. It is great. I'm very grateful to see that one club is willing to assist in the 5 clubs that I mentioned, and we will get in touch with them. A couple of things on global grants. It tends to be a case of Marmite, whether you like it or not. But the thing is, it's just doable. People got it fixated, it's too expensive. For this district grant, it is possible to get a 1-to-1 match. And with polio, it is possible to get a 2-to-1 match. With global grants, you get a 2.5-1 match. It is marvellous that it can be done this way. We're already pushing through one particular global grant that is about to be submitted to Evanston. We're supplying wheelchairs to Botswana, and we've had difficulty in getting a community assessment. And the Rotary Foundation and I have been a little bit more relaxed in saying, yes, you cannot get community assessment. You depend on social workers, hospitals, clinics, etc. And we will take those statements on trust. There's a bit of flexibility there that we are moving forward with this. And because of that, these wheelchairs are likely to be materialised very soon. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
Paul, can I just speak for 2 minutes, because I've got another meeting to go to. Well done, Paul, for presenting this, and I think the amount of participants speaks volumes, doesn't it? If it's any help to anyone, I don't know if you can see this, but each president-elect will have been sent one of these foundation reference guides, and also I've set 2 challenges to president-elects for the coming year. I realise it's going to be difficult with the current situation with COVID, but nonetheless, I do think it's achievable throughout 2020-2021. One is to become a sustaining member. One club in particular I do know has a full contingent of sustaining members. And I think you mentioned this, Paul, before. But it doesn't cost a great deal to actually become a sustaining member, and you're actually donating to our own charity. So that is certainly worth consideration. The COVID money, I don't know if you can check, Doreen, but I'm quite certain it's all gone.
I think it probably has. I mean, they raised another $500,000, but that's probably all gone as well.
Yeah.
We did have a list for the 3 million. I had a list of what that had been spent on. I've not heard what what the other 500 million's been spent on.
500,000.
It goes very, very, very quickly, and I've not been approached by anybody to put a district one in for that. There's something for our IBI as well, which if people go online, they can find out about. That can be club projects, but again, I've not at the moment found out how much that might be in that fund. I've tried to find out if there's any money in that fund, and I've not been given the answer to that yet.
They did have the telethon that raised $500,000.
That was for the main RI fund,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but whether that will go quickly as well. We know it will.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, and good luck to everybody.
Right, thanks, David.
Thanks, David. So I think we're on the hour now, so we're on 8 o'clock. So I think we'll take one more question if anybody's got any other questions. I don't know, James, is there one more question that we can answer?
Can I say that if any questions have been asked that we haven't dealt with, please send them through to us by email, and we will certainly answer your questions. I've got nothing else to do.
and just as an offer,
That's actually not true. I'm busier now than I've ever been.
I'm also more than happy to attend a Rotary meeting and give you a snappy 10 or 15 minute overview if anybody would like to take that on. Obviously, it's easier to do it at the moment with them being Zoom meetings, so let me know and I'm more than happy to come along. Okay.
So there is a. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I would just quickly answer someone that said, "Can the presentation be sent out to all clubs?" I'll remind everybody that this has been recorded and it will be available on the district website after. So if anyone couldn't make this session, let them know that it's been recorded. A quack activity, example, build a school, or can you use district or global grants to help existing charities set up the activity? Example, build a school or a well.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear all that because you were coming in and out.
I've got the question here, Doreen.
Oh,
so
right. Okay.
the question is, can we use a district or global grant to help an existing charity to step up their activity with something like building a school?
You
cannot
new build with global grants.
Okay.
And you cannot new build with global grants, can you? You cannot build. You can extend, you can refurbish, but you cannot build new.
Okay, and they also asked about a well. So the example was a school or a well.
The well would be okay. Creating a well would be okay, wouldn't
just
it?
at the moment, all global grants have been put on hold regarding WASH and BEL, basic education and literacy, and water and sanitation hygiene. Because of COVID, they've just been simply put on hold. So it's a difficult one. That somebody's asked a question. I must make it clear that because I'm deaf, I am most grateful that people have written down the questions, because I just simply can't hear. But one of the questions was about global grants helping existing charities to build up their activities, i.e. a well or a school. I think I've answered it there. On the global grant side, if you put in a BEL application, that automatically covers toilets. You don't have to put in a wash. It gets it through simpler. So at the moment that's released, it will be much better. A lot of the global grants that are coming through now, we've suddenly taken, there's been a renewed interest on the medical side or technical side, and like the wheelchairs I've just mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, so Tony, thanks very much for that. Thank you ever so much, everybody. An amazing turnout for this hour. I know we've overrun by a couple of minutes. You've been great asking all those questions. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed the activities that are on for the rest of the week. James, thanks very much as well for facilitating the meeting.